And I guess we're now official because I put my little sign on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. I'm Frank Johnson, host of the Range Report, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation. Michael Marshall, my illustrious host, constitutional scholar, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, and Michael Vasquez, Dragon of, I'm just going to say the Dragon of New York.
Political dragon. That works.
The fire-breathing demon himself. I like that. Oh, I like that. The fire-breathing demon, Michael Vasquez. The only true independent, tell-it-like-it-is journalist in the business today. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Well, all things considered.
Yeah, okay. That's the key words. All things considered. It's just crazy what's going on out there right now.
Personally, I'm doing good. Politically, I'm not real happy with the way things are.
I don't know how anyone could be happy right now with what's happening in America as we speak. We are, I believe, truly preparing for, this would be the logistics stage of the next civil war. We're seeing so much of our nation break down and be divided on so many levels. And this is going to be the next generation. It's not our generation. It's the next generation.
Every administration, we are going to see a political ping pong battle.
It's not even just that, but that is an aspect of it. But as we see the growth of the socialists, the AOC, the Democratic Socialists of America, as we see these radical progressive organizations gain more and more power and get further into our colleges, dividing our kids through the indoctrination that they have out there, the more that we're going to see this, and DEI is out there. We're just keeping on subdividing and dividing and subdividing all of the American people into these little pockets and groups that cannot work together. And that ultimately will only lead to a civil war.
Okay. Now, this is how insane our country is getting. Okay. I heard this week that seasonal allergies are caused by botanical sexism.
What?
Seasonal allergies.
No, I heard the words
of botanical sexism.
There is no such thing. The words exist. The phrase does not.
Oh, it does now.
No, just because you put two words together doesn't mean it has a meaning.
All right. Well, before you cite your sources, before you cite where you came from, if you would be kind enough, if possible, to please put a definition to mechanical sexism, because there are some sci-fi movies that might be applicable to, but none that I can mention on the show.
Botanical, not mechanical, botanical.
Flowers. Flowers.
Oh, botanical.
Yes. Flowers.
Oh, botanical. Okay. All right. Because I thought you said mechanical. And I'm like, well, okay. There's an old Karen Black movie I remember from the 80s that might have something to do with mechanical sexism.
No, you know what's sad? This term was created shockingly in the 2000s at one of the colleges. Again, shocker. But it's been around since the 2000s, and there is a Wikipedia page for it. I am not kidding about that. Because I had to look up the term. I'm like, who came up with this stupid idea? A college, and they did it. And as you can see, there it is. Bingo. Wikipedia page came out in the 2000s, out in Europe. It was a European idea, and here it is in America.
The first thing, the person that I heard discussing this claimed that there is male and female plants. And it was because of the planting exclusively of male plants that's why we were getting this, because male plants are the ones that output the pollen. Well, every science class that I've been to, Plants have both male and female components.
Yes, because they're plants, not animals.
Well, all
One
I
of
know,
the things that differentiate them from other forms of life, they're
listen, all I
unitary.
know is we had damn well better design a class action lawsuit to go against the bee population, because without them helping the pollen get strewn about, all these people suffering from the
Well,
the,
that
the
would be
pollen
female bees,
contamination.
because all worker bees are female, and they're the ones that distribute the pollen.
Well, do they have permission from the plants to pollinate? I mean, this is, obviously this is a problem because they're not asking for permission before they start pollinating the plants.
And are we sure that all of those bees identify as female?
There's yet another problem. That drone may think of themselves as the queen bee.
Or,
And,
or it may identify as a fox.
could identify as a fox, could identify as a progressive
because
Columbia student.
I heard a story about a hairdresser in my area. 27-year-old man comes in to get his hair dyed because he believes he's a fox and he needs to look the part.
What?
27-year-old man walks into this salon of somebody that I know, needs to get his hair dyed because he identifies as a fox and he needs to look the part.
There was it in Oregon or Washington State? I think it was Oregon, where there was the high school students that walked out of their school because of the furries.
Yes.
Which is what you're describing. These are furries.
Yeah.
For people
Yeah,
who don't know what that is a furry is a human being who self-identifies as an animal and wants to be treated most ways, like an animal. So this is where we get people who think that they're a fox or a dog, a cat. It is along the evolution of, this is why we have people who literally think they are transhuman. They think they are toasters. And I say that all the time because it really exists. There are people who say they are a toaster, just like there are people who say they're a fox.
Yeah. Well, here's what I think we should do. Let's see, is this it? No.
Well, first thing, let's get all those animals spayed and neutered,
Well, that's what I was just getting ready to.
so we won't have to worry about them.
Buttercups, listen, if you're one of those glitter bitch, sparkle taco ass parents that let your kids identify as a cat or dog, can you please be a responsible pet owner and get your cat or dog spayed or neutered so we don't have any more of your genetics floating around in the gene pool? Thing.
Well, we just got demonetized, if not blocked in several nations, the music. But yeah, it's your idea, Frank, right there. You have to spay the strays, and they are strays.
Well, this goes back to, we had the conversation a while back when it came to these furries. And, we were talking about how do parents better protect their children in this environment. And I said, all we need to do is have one kid in these schools who's allergic to animals, whether it be cat, bird, dog, fish, whatever. Have that child's parents go over and file suit against the school, saying you can't have animals in the school. It's just as deadly for my child to be where these animals are as if my kid had an allergy to peanuts, where now you have to change the whole school menu because you have one kid allergic to peanuts. Force the educational system in this country to acknowledge the fact that this is not an animal, but a child, and you eliminate them from the situation. If you insist on saying that your child is an animal, Well, the law in this country stipulates that we're required to educate children. We're not required to educate animals. So if your child is going to continue to identify as an animal, they are hereby expelled from school. And it's your responsibility as a parent to figure out what training device you want to strap around their collar so you can figure out how to make them not shit in the hallway. All right, that's going to be your problem, not ours. And we got to get some normalcy back in there. Once you put a crack in this identification wall, we can call BS on the rest of this crap that we see and start calling things for what they really are.
The thing is,
we're gonna have this fight.
Yeah, but the average person in America already agrees with you and me, Frank, with all of us. They agree with us that this is crap, that this is useless, this is divisive for no other purpose than to be divisive. It is part of the indoctrination of our youth, and it's part of the destruction of our country as we know it. Most agree. It's the fact that the media keeps pushing this in their effort to try and indoctrinate. It is
right,
it is a form of hypnosis that you just hear it over and again.
It's mass hypnosis.
Yeah.
But unless and until we have the adults in the room, in a courtroom, come out and say, enough is enough. And that's the end of it. It doesn't, I don't care what bills are drafted. I don't care what your legislature is. This is what it is. It's XX, it's XY, it's human, it's adult. That's the end. Over. End of discussion. We're not making special accommodations. We're not making special rules. These are human children. You're going to treat them as such. And if you refuse to conform to the policy, you're out. You are out. Your child are out.
I understand.
With it. Once you people say, oh, we're going to draw the line in the sand. Listen, stop drawing lines in sand because sand gets blown away, gets washed away and everything else. Etch the line in the concrete. Engrave it into the concrete so it stands the test of time.
Bedrock.
And be done with it. Exactly. In the bedrock. And
I understand the argument.
Insanity.
I understand your argument, and I know how they're going to pervert the argument because the argument is going to be made racial. That if you're
you know what? Listen, let them make it racial. Let them make it based on sex. Let them make it based on everything. Until we start calling these things out for what they are on the face and getting decisions made by the adults in the room. And as long as people can stand there, oh my God, they called me a racist. So what? They called you a racist. They called you a bigot. So what? They called you sticks and stones may hurt your bones. But when you stand there and you're in line with 99% of the normal people in the country, even the leftists who consider themselves intelligent enough to understand, what's true and what's not, the argument means nothing. Let them bounce off. Let it bounce off and go by the wayside. Reach down, grab your set, give them a squeeze, make sure you still got them, and stand up for something. If you don't stand up for anything, you fall for everything. Enough is enough with this crap. This guy who got convicted in court last week in New York City, what did that asshole judge say? Said to his attorneys at the beginning of the court, the guy who got arrested for making his own firearms at home.
Oh, Dexter.
Yeah,
Dexter.
What did that judge say? Don't bring that Second Amendment stuff into this court. The Second Amendment doesn't exist. This is New York.
Yeah.
That woman needs to be disbarred and thrown behind bars.
Okay.
That's a complete denial of that man's civil rights.
Okay.
And as a judge, she should know better.
To let everyone know what's going on, I think we talked about it a little bit last week. We've talked about it in the past. Gentleman, Dexter, oh God, I'm forgetting his last name now. He goes by Carbon Mike on X. And he was arrested for being a gun hobbyist. He built guns in his home, never sold them to anyone, didn't distribute them to anyone, didn't even have ammunition for them. He was learning how to be a gunsmith in his house in Brooklyn. And because he owned the firearms and the ability to make the firearms under the ghost gun provisions created by Kathy Hochul, having nothing to do with the Second Amendment, they broke into his home and arrested him. Mind you, Everything was legal. He bought all the equipment legally. He registered everything legally. He didn't sell to anyone, and there wasn't ammunition for what he was creating. This was his hobby. He was thinking of making a profession. He was arrested by New York State. He was prosecuted by New York State and convicted by New York State in violation of the Second Amendment without actually harming anyone, without doing anything to threaten anyone. It was merely the possession that he was arrested for. And the judge, as Frank was mentioning, when he went in to defend himself, saying, no, I have a right to, as a hobby and as part of the Second Amendment, to defend myself and to learn how to make a firearm. That's when the judge said, don't bring the Second Amendment into my courtroom, which is where it would exist absolutely, and threw out the Second Amendment to instead take support and advocate for Kathy Hochul, a governor of New York, to take her side, to take her view of the Second Amendment and to enforce that. This is being appealed. He knew he was going to jail, and he is, to prison, probably about 5 years. He knew that walking in, but he's fighting the case to bring it to the Supreme Court to try and squash New York's and several states' bad restrictions on firearm ownership. So just to let everyone know, that's what that case is about.
But just because
Dexter Taylor, that's his name, Dexter Taylor.
And here's one.
He is going to be a very wealthy man at the end of this, because that was not just a matter of his civil rights being denied by a police officer or a district attorney. This wasn't a suppression of evidence. This was a statement made by the judge overseeing the case. The judge made this. If that is not the clearest cut case of a civil rights violation, of his rights being denied, not by a system, but by someone who's supposed to represent the system and be an advocate for justice, who's supposed to be fair, neutral, and balanced, that woman is a friggin' disgrace. I don't know what law school she went to. I don't know what crackerjack box she got her bar certificate from. She needs to be disbarred immediately.
She violates New York civil rights law.
Well,
And she's being held accountable directly.
Okay, right here, New York civil rights law, Section 4, or Article 2, Section 4. The right to keep and bear arms, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms cannot be infringed.
Essentially, New York is restating what the Constitution states. Well, the amendments state.
It's right here. New York Civil Rights, Chapter 6, Article 2, Section 4. And if you don't believe me, look it up. This is right on the New York State website.
Right, and they violated that. They didn't care. And the reason why a lot of people...
they've also violated something else. Okay, let me get back here to it. Because Bill of Rights for the New York State, civil rights, here's the other thing they violate. Okay, Chapter 6, Article 2, Section 2. Supreme sovereignty in the people. No authority can, on any pretense whatsoever, be exercised over the citizens of this state, but such as is or shall be derived from and granted by the people of this state.
Well, that's where they're going to say that they passed a law, the gun control laws, the 12 steps of gun control against concealed carry, and they're going to say that's what gave them the right to do this, which I think is a perversion of law as it is written and as it is intended. He's going to win. The question isn't, is he going to win? It is almost absolute that he's going to win if he can continue to fight, New York State has tried to cover up this story as much as possible and diminish it as much as possible because they knew they were wrong. They spoke to him several times about doing plea bargains so that they could get away from the story. They tried to plead this down somewhat just so they could get out of this, saying, oh, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Just take the deal. We'll let it go. Don't worry, no one's really going to enforce it. It'll be probation. Just accept the deal and be guilty. Because they knew that if this gets scrutinized,
if it
that
gets
New York State's
challenged
gonna
and
lose.
goes up, that's done. New York State SAFE Act is done.
Yeah, and they know this, which is why they don't want to fight it, and why he did fight it, and why he's going to go to prison. His life is destroyed.
Well, there's another case right now that's working through for a guy who got convicted 2 years ago. I don't know his name offhand. I'm embarrassed the fact that I don't. This one got absolutely no media at all. Guy flew into JFK from another state where he's a New York resident, was out of state in Texas or something like that with a bunch of his friends, and he went on a little shooting trip. And that his friends took him out shooting. And he had the same bag that he had other stuff with. He came back with this. You know what this is?
Yeah.
What would that be?
Magazine.
That's the receiver spring. It
Not even
was the bolt.
No.
I forget the word of it.
That's a
No.
magazine spring
Yeah.
Magazine spring.
or a 9mm magazine.
Exactly. This is not a magazine.
No, of course not.
It's a spring. It is a coiled piece of tempered metal that has an elasticity to it, and it just so happens to fit inside a 9mm magazine. The magazine casing was not in his bag. The magazine base plate and spring support were not in his bag. The magazine follower was not in his bag. The spring was not in his bag. When he was at the range, one of these magazines blew apart. The spring hooked onto the handle on his bag. And he got into the airport and this was hooked to his bag.
Okay, so
He got convicted of being in possession of a high-capacity magazine in violation of the SAFE Act.
that's New York for you. Yeah.
Okay, the guy is serving 2 years on account of that. 2 years on account of a friggin' spring. Ladies and gentlemen, are you really free in America anymore?
Well, Dexter
Is this
Taylor.
even remotely close to being the America that you grew up in?
Dexter
Mhm.
Taylor, go ahead and drop his Second Amendment argument and argue on the basis of New York State civil rights law.
Yeah, but he needs to, he's going after the Second Amendment case. He can win on civil rights. He has multiple. To get the charges overturned and be exonerated, he can do that, but he's also specific.
But that would also limit his jurisdiction to New York State because it is only state law where he would have to take it up to a violation of the Constitution to get it to federal courts.
Right.
By the way, that's what a completely reassembled magazine looks like. I've never assembled magazines so quickly without having the spring fly across the room.
That's funny. But when we think about these things, this is yet again another way to divide people, to try and inflame people, terrorize them. Aren't you afraid? You have to obey, or we're going to punish you beyond. This is in violation again of the 8th Amendment. This is unwarranted punishment for something that is minuscule. Because aren't you afraid? We're doing something. And in every one of these cases, we see that. But yet, when we look at things like Columbia College, the Democratic Socialists of America, the progressive movement saying that they support genocide, that they are willing to advocate for genocide, that they want to have public funds, our taxes, used to support terrorism of a terrorist organization that killed 34 Americans at least, and currently have hostages, American hostages, held and being tortured and sexually abused as we speak. And they want our money to go to that, and no one is suppressing them. But if you're against it, you're the one who's being suppressed. They're literally locking out. Columbia University is locking out some of their professors because they aren't pro-Hamas. And that's insane. The news media this week had to be forced for the first time in at least 4 months to even mention that there are American hostages held by Hamas. Since at least the State of the Union, they had to. Why? Because Hamas released a video of one of the American hostages that we don't know if they're alive or dead. Still won't tell us if this person is alive or dead, but they released a video of them under coercion, under force, saying, please, do whatever Hamas says, which is also, I think, a violation of war crimes, but let's go on beyond that. And they had to address it, and that was in and out of the news within 4 hours. The video came out, the story was responded to and dead 4 hours after it came out this week, because they don't want to mention American hostages. They don't want people to connect Hamas to the protests, to terrorism. They don't want people to think that Biden has already funded terror. He's building a pier for terrorists. He's giving money. The bill, we just had the funding for foreign wars, and $9 billion out of the $95 billion, $9 billion, 10% is going to Hamas, a terrorist organization that kills Americans. They don't want people to think about that. That is insane.
No, they don't. And here's another thing they don't want people to think about, and I touched on it already a little bit. Who is supposed to be sovereign in the United States?
American citizens. Easy enough.
Right. But we've lost that. Okay. Instead of actually the way it's supposed to work is the states are supposed to be sovereign over the federal government, and the people are supposed to be sovereign over their state.
Yeah.
Is the way it's supposed to work.
Yes.
Which we are no longer seeing that. We're actually seeing the federal government become sovereign over the citizens and over the states.
And we're seeing that in so many different directions, which is insane. I know we're going to talk about the overreach of the FTC, the FCC,
and the EPA,
the ATF.
The Labor
These are
Department.
all organizations making their own laws. It's insane.
Okay, actually, that's a perfect segue. This week, numerous executive agencies, many of which we just mentioned, this week decided to change definitions and laws that were set by Congress without the authority to do so. Okay. And we've had these discussions on here before, that executive agencies are initiated not to create law, not to create definitions. They are exclusively there to execute laws passed by Congress. That is their only authority. That is their only duty. Executive department executes. They execute laws. They do not create laws. They do not legislate. That is not their role. That is not their job. But this week, the FTC came out and legislated that companies and businesses can no longer require non-competes of people that they are employing. Okay. That's one ruling that came out. Now, that's all well and good on the surface when you look at it. But here's
No,
what
it's not.
really happened with this law of banning non-competes. Okay. An employee gets fired or leaves, goes to another job, knows all the trade secrets of this company that they just left, knows all the other good things that gives that particular business a competitive advantage, and starts telling their new employer all this stuff. So what the FTC has inadvertently done has opened that individual up to some huge lawsuits.
That's
where a
one part.
non-compete lawsuit was pretty minor. Okay. Basically, it would come down to you got to quit your job because you cannot work in. Okay. Now, the company will let that person go, let them go ahead and divulge these secrets, these trade secrets. And once it's uncovered that they did, now that employee is responsible for all the damages that company that resulted to that company from the divulging of those trade secrets.
Well, here's the problem with the Federal Trade Commission, what they did. And again, this isn't what I think. Forget that. This is the National Law Review. The National Law Review, their comments today, the 26th of April. Okay. So has nothing to do with whether you think we're right or wrong. This is what the National Law Review has to say about this. The key point that they make is this is a violation of the major question doctrine. The major question doctrine prohibits agencies like the FTC attempts to promulgate, I hate that word, new rules which have broad sweeping economic and political significance unless the agency, the FTC, has been given clear congressional authority. Again, the major question rule doctrine is that the FTC, the ATF, the FCC, they cannot create laws on their own. They can only enforce laws that already exist in the manner that the law exists, that it allows.
Exactly. They can't change that law. They can't reinterpret that law. They can't change definitions within that law.
Right. Everything, the law is what the law says, not what they want it to be, not what they feel it is. They don't get to have their truth. There is only the law that is the truth, that is empirical, and that is semantic, that is exact. And what they have done is they have overreached, they have broken the law. Again, that's the National Law Review. So this isn't like, oh, well, maybe if this is what the lawyers speaking to law firms across the country is making very explicitly clear. And whether you like, and this affects NDAs. So if you have a business, you're trying to test it out, you're trying to raise money because you have this wonderful new idea to compete with Microsoft or with Intel or Cisco. Don't know. I'm just throwing out an idea. You want to compete with Facebook or Twitter. You have this great new idea. You're trying to get funding to do a proof of concept. And you have everyone sign an NDA. So you tell them about it. They give you money. And they promise not to tell anyone else or to take their money. And since they have the money, and go to someone else and remake your idea. It's to protect you as you start your new business. So maybe you don't agree with that. But that's what the FTC has just said. Oh, there is no secret. There is no protection. You lose. The small guy doesn't get to compete with the big guy because the government said so.
That's what a non-compete agreement is.
Yeah.
Is this a non-disclosure agreement?
Well, it's another form. They consider it
It
two
is.
separate.
It is another form of non-disclosure agreement, but it is a form of non-disclosure.
That's what
Okay.
most lawyers would argue, and that's what the National Law Review is saying.
So this does put non-disclosure agreements, basically nullifies them. And they don't realize, okay, the FTC has, again, overstepped its bounds. So this is going to do a lot of things. It's going to hurt a lot of businesses, number one. And it's going to end up hurting employees, even though the Democrats are trying to tout that this is going to be a way to pressure businesses into paying their employees more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the way the Democrats are putting this out as, that this new ruling or this new rule will coerce or encourage businesses to pay their employees a fairer wage, because now they're in order to keep their employees, because their employees are no longer under the threat of being sued if they decide to leave and go to another business that's in the same field.
No, it just means that they're going to have less people are going to get promoted. Essentially, what's going to happen is they're going to restrict the number of people who can get promoted to learn about this information.
Right.
They're actually going to bottleneck the advancement of various people.
Well, you're going to have that.
management.
You're going to have bottlenecking of advancement. There are so many detriments on this. Okay. There's going to be a lot more compartmentalization within businesses. So nobody's going to know. So this is actually going to end up hurting business, because they're not going to be able to advance as quickly. They're not going to be able to innovate as quickly, and so
There's
forth.
going to be
Because
a hell of a lot more
so
corruption.
compartmentalized. I mean, there's just so many things, so many levels where this is so detrimental to both businesses and employees alike.
You know what's the biggest
Because
problem?
now, because of this not having non-competes, it's going to make it harder for employees to learn in order to learn the skills to advance.
No, you know what's the ultimate problem? And it's not what Pete's mentioned, because, I mean, funny but true, someone from Coca-Cola is going to bring the recipe over to Pepsi. I mean, while that is an option in KFC, those 11 secrets, well, they're going to be out. But it's not just that. The biggest problem is, and we can never get away from this, no matter what side people want to fall on this. Oh, corporations are bad, blah, blah. Okay, I don't care. It's that they made this up themselves. Understand that if they can do this, the government can do anything. If they can just make it up at a whim, what they want you to do, they're micromanaging your life.
Okay, and let's get this correct. Okay, it's not just government. It is exclusively the executive department.
Mm-hmm.
The one charged with executing the law. So now we've got a single department that is now creating the laws that they are executing.
Yeah. Directly in the face of
separation of powers.
Yeah. Directly
the exact
usurping Congress, taking away its power.
Okay. And that's not the only place that it was done this week. Okay. That's just one. The next one is the reinstituting of net neutrality.
Mm-hmm,
okay. Mm-hmm. Again, this is the FCC taking it on its own authority that it can regulate, trying to utilize a 1934 law to justify this, that basically ISPs have to give equal access to everybody to the internet. which they essentially do, and that they can't charge a premium for giving people more or better access to the internet, i.e., big tech. Well, the thing is net neutrality was never a problem. And way back when we first started this, when net neutrality was an issue, we had some discussions about this, about what net neutrality was and what it doesn't do.
Back in 2015, to be exact. Mm-hmm.
So, net neutrality, is something that makes everybody think the federal government is going after big tech and that they're doing something when they aren't.
Well, no. I would say they are. It's
No, they're
putting
not.
the government in charge of the internet.
No, they're not. Okay, and hear me out, because you can go on Amazon Web Services and read about their Direct Connect program. Go to Google and find out how their Direct Connect program works. Okay? Google, Netflix, Amazon, Microsoft, Hulu, whatever other big one that you want to come up with, have regional network farms that, if they are not co-located with ISPs, they are in buildings directly next to ISPs. Okay, so they don't have to go through all the routing in order to get to the internet. And they do this on a regional basis so they can actually divide and work their traffic out. The small mom and pop gets their internet service at their home or at their business, right? And it gets routed to a router and gets routed to another router. And then finally it gets onto the main path of the internet where it can actually go where it needs to go. These big tech companies avoid all that because they are literally located at the same place as the ISP's main connections in these regional data farms. And people don't understand that. So this net neutrality is not going to change a damn thing. Okay. In fact, if anything, it's going to further burden ISPs and make innovation lag. Speeds are going to start lagging, and decreasing or slowing down as far as how rapidly they move up. And the other thing is, it's going to end up costing everybody more.
Yeah, it will cost everyone money. But no matter where you fall on this argument, even if you want to say, again, you want to say evil corporation bad. Okay, fantastic. But this is the government making it up as they go, creating their own power and micromanaging aspects of your life. Again,
this isn't government just making it up as they go along. This has received the input from all of the major tech companies, because all of the big major tech companies that are out there directly benefit from this, even though they'll sit there and they'll in a public face scream and cry about it. The bottom line is, all of the small companies that are going to have to abide by these new rules and regulations cannot afford to invest the money into compliance. The big companies can. The big companies are more than likely already in compliance. So what they're saying is, you're going to cost me $1 now, but you know what? I'm going to make 10 extra by the end of the year when we collect all the consumer base up from the small companies that go out of business because they can't afford to abide by the new rules and regulations. This is how the big companies work. They create a system with the assistance of government that smaller companies cannot abide by. It's like when they introduced airbags in cars. Oh, all your cars got to have airbags. All your cars got to have anti-lock brakes. All your cars got to have this, got to have that. There were a lot of small car companies at the time there that could not necessarily afford to say, hey, listen, we're charging $6,000 for this car. By the time we meet your safety regulations, we're $12,000 for the car. Our customers can't afford that, but Ford can afford to build that car for $10,000. So the car that makes it for $6,000 has to go out of business because they can't afford to comply. Ford picks up the customer base because they're a bigger company. They can afford to invest in the loss today because they gain in the future. That's what's going to happen with this stuff. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Frank, I understand that that's a consequence potentially of this.
It's the consequence. It's what they want.
I don't agree with that. What I think it is, and I think the bigger issue is that this is another test area. And I think these are tests. They're testing the limits. They're seeing where they can push. This is once again another area that most people aren't paying attention to, that we see the government trying to see how much overreach can we put? How much can we be involved in business and private business? How much can we be involved in individuals' lives, in every aspect of their lives, whether you notice it or not, whether it's direct or if it's secondary, that the government is getting involved, making and having more and more control over what you see, what you do, what you can say. Aspect after aspect is falling under these made up rules that they're trying to, and they're using that to manipulate, and they're making and the candy, the thing that makes the medicine go down easier, that they're doing this with is, I think you're right, Frank. Yes, there are large businesses that are benefiting from this in that process. And that's medicine that makes it easy.
That's the trade-off. That's the trade-off. Listen, they're all a part of the same theological camp. They all have the same political persuasion. They all want the same end game that everybody else in the government wants. And now this is how the way that they can sit there and say, okay, listen, this is how we draw a line to make us look like the good guy. You look like the bad guy. We get all the little guys out, and yet we still force feed everybody the same bullshit information that you want us to feed because you want to control the narrative. We want to control the money. We both want to control the people. And that's what it's about.
It's all about the day, here's what ends up happening. Okay. And this is where it really gets to the small consumer, okay, and the small businesses. And this is how they literally drive them out. Okay. What ends up happening is the cost per kilobit of bandwidth ends up increasing and dramatically increases. And as that increases, then that's what ends up forcing the small guys out and makes it less competition against the big guys.
And who can afford it?
Right. That's exactly what happens.
Well, I have, let me show one of the things on this
Alexa,
issue.
turn on all lights, or turn on the living room, turn on the office light.
MSK, believe me, nobody
Alexa, turn on all office light.
Want NDAs to go away, and nobody in the government really wants. There'll be very specific distinctions drawn between government and business liaisons as to which non-disclosure agreements are enforced and which ones aren't, because nobody in government wants to release those flight logs. Nobody.
Yeah, nobody does.
Well, but here's the thing, though. NDAs are irrelevant in criminal trials. Okay? An NDA does not protect you from testifying, from not testifying in a criminal trial. NDAs don't work that way. Okay? They work on you not disclosing it to the public, but if you are asked under oath a question that is covered under an NDA, you can't get around, you can't not answer that question.
It wouldn't be a Fifth Fifth
Right.
Fifth Amendment violation. It's proprietary to a business, not to you.
Right.
Now it's up to the courts to figure out what's in the
And that
NDA.
business can't come back on you for divulging that information that was covered under that NDA when it is when it's as testimony in a some type of court procedure.
And anything that's going to come out of testimony for the Epstein Islands or flight logs or anything else like that, a lot of that stuff is going to be, all right, I'm telling about your sin, but I'm also telling about my own.
Right.
You're not going to have a lot of people that are going to be willing to come in and testify because a lot of it.
That's the real problem under Epstein and the P. Diddy cases.
Well,
Yeah, they have to figure out what was the least offensive of the offensive offenses, and how many people can that person testify against, and how can they justify giving immunity to that one person, excluding and overlooking the heinous atrocities that person committed.
Right.
They're looking for their
that's the real what's really an issue.
They're looking for their Sammy Bull Gravano. Only the one problem is the people who are supposed to be looking for Sammy Bull Gravano, they were on the friggin' flight list too. So,
right.
Well, those are different levels of corruption that are in there, but this is where all the corruption is coming from. The sourcing of the corruption that we're talking about in reference to Epstein getting to the truth, actually punishing individuals like Epstein or pedophiles that we find throughout all of our government. The source of that corruption is when we see things like this, where government is overreaching its power. It's distracting the public with every other issue in the world rather than letting us see the exact thing they're dealing with. As an example, the problem with what's going on right now with Hamas, the Israel-Hamas war, the reason we're so wrapped up in Colombia and the, I believe, completely artificial protest that's happening there. This is being funded, I truly believe, by outside institutions, because you don't overnight get tent cities in college campuses across the nation that all are exactly the same model, the same make, and the same color overnight. That doesn't happen without someone injecting money in, which means someone is influencing this. But we're not having that conversation. Okay,
like the pallets of bricks that showed up in every one of the cities that burned down during the Summer of Love.
Yeah.
The pallets and truckloads of bricks
right.
that showed up on street corners mysteriously that nobody could figure out where they came from.
Yeah, it's the same kind of outside influence that wants this breakdown. They want this corruption because it advances their political agenda.
The thing is, this corruption is nothing new. This corruption has been going on for generations. Okay. Everybody, when you talk about the Vanderbilts, everybody sees Vanderbilts as being this uber evil person that manipulated Wall Street and caused a lot of people to lose a lot of money. Right?
They did.
That's what history is, or history puts out there, or that's the narrative. You want to know what really happened with Vanderbilt?
Well, their philanthropy is a big part of who they are as well.
Let's get into what really happened with Vanderbilt. This is what tarnished his name. Okay. Vanderbilt had a railroad, right? He wanted to bring that railroad into New York City. Okay. The New York City alderman wanted a payoff in order for Vanderbilt to be able to come into that city. Okay. As a result, when the aldermen gave their approval initially for Vanderbilt to bring his railroad into New York City, the stock price for that railroad started going up. So the aldermen started shorting this and then turned around and denied Vanderbilt permission to come into New York City, which started the stock price going down. Vanderbilt, in order to fight back, started buying up his shares just as fast as they were being sold off, which then stabilized his stock price, and it ended up causing all those aldermen to lose a shit ton of money. And that was the first time that they tried to ruin Vanderbilt. The next time they tried to ruin Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt had 2 railroads, and he wanted to combine those railroads into one business. In order to do that, he had to get a law passed through the New York State legislature that would allow him to do so. The New York State legislature, as we all know, especially in that era, was extremely corrupt. So they were wanting their little payday in order to pass this legislation. Okay, it gets out that New York State's going to allow these businesses to merge together and become one entity. Stock prices for Vanderbilt's railroads starts going up again. Then the New York State legislature these people that got these payoffs start shorting the railroad stock again. And then they turn around and don't pass the law to allow him to combine his railroads, which in turn causes his stock prices to start dropping. And he turns around again and sinks everything he has, everything that he can borrow in order to save his railroad. And he ends up saving it again. And it causes a lot of the New York State legislature to lose tons of money in Wall Street because of it. And that's what tarnished his reputation. That's the story people don't know about the Vanderbilts.
Yeah, but I think the Vanderbilts are a big boogeyman. They're the excuse to allow a lot of the intelligentsia to push their agenda.
And that's it. But if the people knew the true story, that it was actually corruption that caused a lot of this, then they'd look things differently.
I don't know that the average person would, because they're not going to pay attention to the old history. I think the bigger thing, while it's good to know the history, I truly, this is what I do. We go back in time. Let's look at how we got here and see the similarity of the problems that we have today, because we have a lot of that same kind of corruption today.
Oh, we
have special interests.
That's what this New Deal is all about.
Right. It's special interests writing the laws to benefit themselves and politicians making money, kind of like Nancy Pelosi making money off of wind energy companies with the big windmills. She's making tons of money off of that as she promotes it coincidentally at the same exact time. So, there's a whole bunch of problems with that. But I think people need to understand that the corruption, and I think that's the way that most people will get it, really get it, is that the core of the corruption isn't the companies. That's the distraction. That's the thing that makes it easy. It's the thing that keeps you. That's what the colleges have been focusing on. Oh, hate the corporations. Classic liberals hate corporations. And up until 10 years ago, they were all against every corporation. And then they started falling in love with companies like Apple. Then they started falling in love with the pharmaceuticals. But before that, they hated them because of this reason, because of the corruption. But that was always the distraction, because the root problem is government taking on more power than they ever had and not letting people see what's going on. I'll give you a great example of what I'm talking about in the distractions. So right now we're talking about legitimately issues that are going on with the FTC, the FCC. We're talking about what's happening in Colombia. We're talking about Epstein. We're not talking about the economy. Remember, Bidenomics is great. Everything is fantastic. You've never had it better. You're better off today than 4 years ago, except, by the way, the news media is finally actually mentioning something that I said August of 2022. I've said it on this program several times. We're facing stagflation. We're in a recession. We're repeating many of the steps that we saw under the Carter administration. But they have been fighting against that and said, you're wrong. You're wrong. Don't you dare say that. That's not true. It has nothing to do with the truth. That's just not real. And here they are telling you now. It was within the last 6 months, they started telling you that, oh, by the way, we might kind of sort of be in a recession and we need a soft landing. By the way, it might be stagflation. Bidenomics is fantastic. Don't worry, vote Democrat 2024, fortify all the way. And by the way, if you're not paying attention to Colombia, if you're worried about, if you're paying attention to the election, pay attention to everything except the economy's falling apart and the government's trying to micromanage more and more of your life, regardless of who you vote for. That is the big problem, I think. Does that make sense, guys?
Well, as far as Colombia's been a shit show for as long as I can remember. I mean, not for nothing, but it wasn't that long after 9/11 that Columbia University extended an invitation to Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, or as Dennis Miller would call him, Aquavelvajad. That he would come out and be he was supposed to be a keynote speaker at a graduation. And then they changed that to, it was going to be an open forum. And it wasn't until somebody asked him about, what do you think about the gays on campus? And he said, well, in my culture, we stone you to death. That they realized maybe that was the greatest choice of speaker to come there. But yeah, Columbia has been a crap show since I lived in New York. It always has been. It always will be. If you give your money to Columbia, shame on you. If you go to school there and you have an ounce of self-value and self-worth, leave. Go to a different school.
The problem is it's not. I was saying that, remember we were having this conversation when everyone was talking about Harvard and MIT and University of Pennsylvania. And when we had them in court, they were at the congressional hearing, and they refused, each and every one of them refused to denounce the call for genocide that we see with the pro-Hamas protest, the Democratic Socialists of America, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, that this is what they've been calling for. And they would not denounce it. They would not denounce in their own schools, like the University of Cornell, where students actually converted to members of Hamas, a terrorist organization, where their Cooper Union, where the pro-Hamas students were trying to break down doors to attack other students that didn't agree with them. These presidents did not denounce genocide, and instead they've supported it. And we've seen that. So when people go, well, it's Columbia, it's across the nation right now. It's at the University of Austin. It's happening at UCLA. It's happening at Berkeley. We've already talked about half a dozen colleges in New York State alone. We're seeing this in every single college. It's happened. We just had this at Binghamton University. Just had a debate last week. Last week, they had a debate of the Student Association where they were trying to decide whether they would support the BDS, which is, many people believe, anti-Semitic. It is an attack on Jews and Israel. And they wanted to pass this policy, the BDS policy. And initially, the Student Association of Binghamton University shot it down. But the decision had already been made by the administration. The decision had already been passed by their teachers, the indoctrination. And so when the meeting was done, and I was watching it live, I was commenting live. The Binghamton Review had a horrible live broadcast, but I was watching the whole thing, commenting all the way through. And what did they say? They went through 2.5 hours of discussion about it. The student body voted on it. They said, no, they're not passing this anti-Semitic bill. And then for another hour, as all the students who are protesting against this, who are supporting Israel, who were supporting America, supporting Israel, when all of them were gone, and the only people left were the pro-Hamas students, they had another vote. No one knew this was going on. They just created yet another vote, and suddenly, an hour after everyone heard the vote say it was defeated and this isn't going to happen, after everyone left, and the only people left was the Binghamton Review continuing to tape because they were still there. And then suddenly they had a brand new vote and said, okay, yeah, we're doing BDS. We're going to push this anti-Semitic bill in our college. This was coming from higher ups because it was over. The decision had already been made. The public agreed with shooting it down because it was anti-Semitic, and it passed. And we are seeing this at college after college. It's not just Columbia. It is at college after college. And like I said, and what do we see at college after college with all these protests? It's just like the Occupy Wall Street movement we saw across the country. It isn't just a copycat. It is literally someone is putting in the same tents, in the same model, same color, same tent, in campus after campus after campus, with the same voices from the same organizations coming out and say, you know what, this is all a mess. These guys are so horrible. You need to try out socialism. You need to be a progressive. We need to support terrorism. Don't worry about the consequences. It'll all be rainbows and all really nice. And you have the corruption in our government going, oh, well, you can't be against that because then you're a bad person. You're the bad person for trying to stop their First Amendment speech. What? No, that's not how this works. They love to twist this stuff. This is the way I see it. It's very upsetting to me. And a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't hear these stories. They don't see the video that is available of these protesters, outside organizations with bullhorns speaking to the students in their brand new luxury tents, telling them, by the way, everyone tells you that communism is bad, socialism is bad. They're the same people who are telling you that you shouldn't be protesting against a terrorist organization. Don't worry, stick with us. That's the story that we should really be talking about, in my opinion.
Another thing.
Sorry, I was ranting.
That we need to be talking about is, as a part of that funding that was passed, the emergency funding for Ukraine and Israel and all this, they also put in the TikTok ban.
Oh, yeah, as one of the amendments.
Okay. So, that TikTok ban was authored by Gallagher, I think it was.
Mike Gallagher? Yeah.
Yes. And when he wrote it, Mr. Gallagher bought like $150,000 of Facebook stock. Then when he introduced it, he bought an additional $150,000 worth of Facebook stock. And as Facebook is one of the main competitors against TikTok, he continues buying Facebook stock as this progresses through. When it passes the House, he buys more Facebook stock. Gallagher ends up buying, I'm pretty sure it's Gallagher, ends up buying over $1 million worth of Facebook stock in the process. Gets it amended onto the Ukraine aid bill, and it ends up passing. And Biden signs it into law. So now officially, TikTok is going to be banned from the United States.
Oh, this is Gallagher, right? Is this the same Gallagher that says he's resigning early?
It could be.
I'm researching on the other computer. I know. Petey brought it up. I hope maybe he could do a little offline research while we're going. Maybe it's just me, but I kind of think that maybe if you've submitted your letter of resignation, that you're no longer going to be representing your district or the country or the people or whatever, that maybe there should be a rule in the Congress that says you can't offer any amendments to any laws that might be enacted in your stead because you decided to quit.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate. That is not just a matter of it's a visual impropriety. No, that is straight up criminal corruption.
Now, I don't know if he's one that actually amended it onto this bill, but he's one that literally, okay, I'm going to bring it up here right now, authored the bill. Okay. And it is called Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. This bill protects distributing, maintaining, and providing internet hosting services for a foreign adversary controlled application, e.g. TikTok. However, prohibition does not apply to a covered application that executes a qualified divestiture as determined by the president. Under the bill, foreign adversary control application is directly or indirectly operated by one BitDance Limited.
It's Michael McCall.
McCall?
Congressman Michael McCall is the one that wrote the TikTok ban while buying stock in Meta.
Okay.
Okay, I thought it was Gallagher, but all right. Good to be corrected.
This is what I'm getting that off of AP. So
okay, either way. Okay. And I may have got it wrong, but this is what the thing is that I'm trying to point out is our representatives that we elect to represent us are doing things like this, writing legislation that they know is going to either inflate or deflate a value of stock, and then they turn around.
All right. Just because, we know that we sort of get viewed every now and then by people that'll call us a bunch of paws and hacks and all the rest of that shit.
No,
Here we are. We're going to call this Michael T. McCall to the carpet, call him a corrupt son of a bitch for buying stocks in a company that he's trying to eliminate the competitor to through legal means. He's a Republican. He's corrupt. He's a Republican.
I don't care what initial by their name. Okay, and the very fact that they are doing this shit and buying millions of dollars in stock that is going to directly benefit because of a bill that they're passing is nothing short of corruption. Nothing short of it.
When in Brooklyn, we used to have these rashes would go around where 2 or 3 cars on every street in Brooklyn would wind up getting their passenger side or driver's side windows punched out.
Oh, so people get windows fixed.
And it would happen for like a week. And at the end of the week, you'd see signs getting stapled up onto the telephone poles around the end of the block. A brand new automotive glass company just opened up right there on Fort Hamilton Parkway. Oh, how convenient. They create a situation in which only they can benefit from, and they know it going in ahead of time. That is textbook. You cannot get more treacherous than that when you talk about corruption. It's not like, well, we're going to play the odds and see what's happening. They do it. They know it's going to do it. It's the same with these Congress people that turn around and say, I didn't vote for a single pork barrel bill that came out of Washington. I'm the anti-pork guy, and I never vote for this. I never vote for that. But the same guy goes and he writes into that pork barrel bill how many hundreds of $1 million get to go back to that guy's state, so that when he goes back to the state, he can turn around and tell everybody, hey, you know that $25 million we just got up, we brought in for the turtle sanctuary? Yeah, I got that in for the state. Yeah, but you didn't vote for it. No, but I stunk it into the bill. Well, how are you any better? How are you any better than the people that vote for it if you're just somebody who's going, you're worse. You're worse than that person, because at least the person who voted for it, he gets to take credit for it twice, or take the shame of it twice. You try to hide it from one group of people while trying to take credit for it from another.
Yeah, and that's considered standard.
System is destroyed.
It's not the system, it's the people abusing the system. There is a difference. There is a difference. And I think that's important, because when we say that it's the system, that's what we hear from the progressive left. And this is their call. This is their excuse to try and tear it all down, to destroy it all. Oh, the system is broken. No, it's not the system. It's the people in the system. It's the people abusing the system. Again, these are abuses of the system. The system's fine. The system works. It's the abuse that is screwing it all up.
Well, if we went back to the very first Congress and said, here's are the rules in the very first Congress, here's are the rules for the very first Senate, and said, okay, we're eliminating everything after that, that would be the proper system. I'm not saying to destroy it. I'm saying to reread it. Get rid of all the crap that has bastardized the system through the corruption of the 247 years of people that we've had in there trying to figure out how they could keep their friggin' jobs.
Well, there's no way to really stop that. I mean, look, the Second Amendment is point blank as obvious and direct as you can possibly make it. And yet, look at how they have been rewriting it, reinterpreting it, redefining everything there. They redefine what is a recession. They redefined what is a man, what is a woman. They will twist and turn whatever way they need to. And the answer is, I think, that the public needs to speak up and to speak out. And they have to be actively involved. The fear, the thing that holds back the corruption, isn't punishing people after the fact, because we don't catch enough of them, and far too many of them get away with it, or get away with it long enough and make enough money doing it that it's still worthwhile. We need to be watching them and make them aware they are accountable day one, that they're always being watched, and that they will instantly or immediately be punished. They're not going to sit on the sun because of all of the payoffs they get, and then maybe spend, a year in Club Fed and pay only the principal, but they made twice as much money off of interest and investments that don't get absorbed in the punishment. We have to do it that way. We need people to be involved in talking about this and holding them accountable and saying, you can't do this. You don't have that power. You don't deserve that power. Stop them before they get to make the corruption. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I think that makes sense. And I think that's part of the big problem. Part of the really big problem is we've really got to get more involved, because they are breaking everything.
Well, I'd say it would just be really nice if we can, like I said, you can get the people to talk about it, but you got to get the people to learn about it. They ain't going to talk about nothing unless they know what the hell is going on. And 75% of the people in this country have no clue what the hell is going on, because they're still getting their news from the mainstream media.
85%. And yeah, But
So-
or TikTok, and that's
Peter,
another problem.
says
No
that we
line
need a
item.
line item veto.
Never.
No, we don't need a line item veto.
Never,
we need
ever, ever.
each bill needs to be presented with a single issue with no amendments to it that are not directly related to that item. Period.
Simplify the process. Simplify.
Okay?
We don't need
No more of these omnibus bills.
Mike, don't you love 2,000-page bills that no one reads, that have, God, that require, according to Clyburn, Representative Clyburn himself said, it requires 3 lawyers and 2 interns spending 4 days to be able to read these bills. I mean, isn't that the way it's supposed to be done?
Everybody
No,
says
it's
read
not.
the bill, read
And
the
that was
bill.
never the way it was intended when the Constitution was framed, when the House of Representatives and the Senate were established. They were supposed to work on a single issue, debate that issue, vote on it, decide if it's going to become law, and then go to the next issue.
Yeah, I agree. It should be ultra simplified so that, and this has been done
And
on
laws
purpose.
were supposed to be written so that the lowest
Basic education. If you have a
denominator,
basic,
yeah,
it should be that
person
simple.
understand the law
Well,
that was written.
it should be that simple, because the only reason why it's not is that so people get paid and people can abuse the system. The more complicated, the more vague, the more likely someone is to take advantage of it. And that's the whole point of it, because it should be absolutely simple. I can't imagine a law being more than a page, maybe 2 pages long. I've written my prototypes of laws. It doesn't take more than a page, maybe 2 pages, to cover pretty much everything you can think of. It's not that hard. They don't, but they want it to be that hard. So people are disencouraged, because anyone can read a 2-page thing. Yeah, 3 minutes. Yeah, you can reach 2 typewritten pages. It takes 3 minutes. You're not supposed to read it.
Yeah,
Which
I'll be
is,
back in a
again,
couple minutes, guys.
What?
I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Okay. But you're not supposed to read it. You're not supposed to know what it says. That's one of the reasons why one of my big pet peeves is the fact that people constantly are not told this is the bill number. We're talking about the funding, the foreign funding. Yeah, that bill number, by the way, people, HR 8035. There's also several other bills. This was also under HRES 1160. That's what they passed.
And there was an 837 also.
That's in that's under the 8037 would be under HRES 1160. It's a combination of like 4 or 5 bills all put in one. But I mean, and again, this is the conversation you should know. They don't tell you the bill numbers. They sometimes tell you the bill name, which you may or may not type incorrectly, which may or may not be what it actually is called. Like Obamacare isn't the name of the bill. The name of the bill is the American Rescue Amendment. No, excuse me, American Rescue Act. Recovery Act. American Recovery Act. Sorry. There's been so many versions of it since 2010 that it's hard to remember what it is. It's the ACA. And nobody remembers that. Everyone calls it Obamacare. So if you're actually trying to find it, you'll never find it because it never says Obamacare in there. Everyone knows what you're talking about. Everyone knows what you're referring to. But if you're trying to read the bill to find out what it says, which, by the way, that's 2,000 pages long, good luck, you can't, because you can't find it. It's not under that. This is one of the ways that the corruption, and that is an example of corruption, they stop telling you so that you can't find out. I'm telling you, folks, this is really sad, and it's really evil, and it's really pervasive, and we need to call that out. I mean, it's as simple as just telling, write to the New York Times, put the bill number in. If 1 million people told the New York Times, put the bill number in. They'd put it in every single article. If someone said that to Fox News and or CNN, oh, you're going to refer to the bill? By the way, cite the bill numbers. What's the bill number? If you had 1 million people do that, I guarantee you, even 100,000 people, they'd suddenly be citing it left and right because people are paying attention.
The one that was signed into law today was HR 815.
815 isn't the one that's the 95 billion.
Right.
That's a different one. That's another set of money.
And that's the one that actually banned TikTok.
Yeah, that's the TikTok. That's not the funding.
The 8035 law that you're talking about has only passed the House. It hasn't actually made it past the Senate yet.
No, that and HRES 1160, neither of them have gotten to the Senate yet.
But HR
they will.
15 has actually became law and is Public Law 118-50.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And this is, folks, it sounds crazy. You can look this stuff up. It's easy. Just type in HR 8035. The bill will come up. It's that easy to find it. They can't hide this from you. It is public information. You have a right to see this and to be able to read it. And there are half a dozen neutral agencies. I particularly go with GovTrack, or you can go to congress.gov. It's the government itself. They will show you the bill. They will show you every amendment on the bill. They will show you who wrote it, when they wrote it, who supports it, when they supported it. It's all public information. So when they come to you and lie and say, I always supported that bill, you can actually look it up and go, no. Actually, you just started supporting it yesterday. You've been against it for 5 years. You can do that. You can call them out. A lot of people just don't know that. And yes, Jan, there are too many lawyers in Congress. Half of Congress is a lawyer. Literally 51% of all people elected into the government in Congress are lawyers. That's a problem.
Okay, Frank's outside.
Oh, so. There you go.
Yeah, I had to pop back on from the outside world. I had 3 dogs downstairs all crying at the same time that they had to go outside.
Well, and here's the thing, okay? When we have government passing bills like we've seen with the ATF and what Biden did to expand those gun laws that supposedly closed the gun show loophole
that didn't exist,
right? And other laws, it literally opens the door for corruption along the way. Okay, when we see the new rules that went forth through the EPA, where they are now going to crack down on coal and gas-fired power plants and make it harder, make environmental regulations of them even stricter. Okay, how many of these people that are promoting this bill are promoting this are benefiting because of the money that they have invested in green, quote unquote, green tech?
Tons of them.
Okay. Or when we see the new labor laws, which again are going to do nothing more than hurt employees, even though on the surface it sounds like it's going to be a big boon for employees. It's not. Okay. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, this week, the Labor Relations Board came out with new regulations for businesses that they must pay overtime to any employees making under a little over $43,000 a year whenever they work over 40 hours in a week. Okay, which sounds great on the surface.
Mm,
But if you just do a minor amount of critical thinking about this, this is going to result in quite a few things happening. Okay, the first one is those employees are going to more than likely get turned into hourly employees. And they will have to clock in and clock out just like everybody else. Okay, which is fine. In fact, probably as it should be. But a lot of those employees that are making that era or that income range are paid salary because they are in businesses that have lags and booms.
yeah,
Okay.
they're service workers mostly service workers that are on
And
demand.
what ends up happening is when they are in a lag, their employer says, go home. We don't have anything for you to do. Okay. You're still going to get paid because you're paid your salary. Okay. So if they only work 20 hours that week, they still get paid as if they were working 40. Okay. Now, down the road, when they are busy and they have to put in 45, 50 hours in that week, well, guess what? They got the time off and still got paid for it. So it's not like they're not getting paid. It's not like that they're working 40, 50 hours every week all year long.
And never get paid. Let's put it in perspective for people, because we're not talking about the waitress down at the corner,
No,
at your local diner. That's not who this is written for.
no.
It's written for the machinist. So as
No,
an
it's not even
example,
written for the machinists because they're typically hourly.
well, no, there's a lot of places. I know in central New York, I'm forgetting the name of it right now. There's a couple of machinist places, and they have workers that are salary workers for the very same reason you've explained. When they don't have contracts, they don't have jobs coming in, then they let people go home. And then that'll be maybe two, 3 months out the year. And then there's another 2-3 months out the year where they're working overtime every week, and it balances out. So, but a lot of people think of this when they hear this, they think, oh, well, overtime. So you're talking about the bartender, the waitress, the McDonald's fry guy. That's how they frame this, that people think about it. It's not about them. It's not that kind of industry we're talking about.
Okay, and at times that's also office workers.
Yeah, them too. Mm-hmm.
Okay, where when there's a lot of stuff going on, that where they're needed, they may have to work a couple hours over a few times a week. Okay, but when there's nothing going on and they don't have anything to do, rather than having them sit at their desk, they say, hey, go home. Enjoy some time with your family, whatever. Okay. Yeah. These are so now you're going to force these positions into getting paid hourly. And when there's no work, guess what? These guys aren't going to get paid.
Yeah. And the thing that gets me about this is it's again government micromanagement. Why is the government getting in the way of private businesses where it's unnecessary? This isn't necessary. You can either unionize, you can find another job. We don't need the government involved to do this.
And here's the thing. Okay. I don't care where you are employed. Do not care. Do not care what level of payment you receive as compensation. Every one of you, when you decided to take that job, had the opportunity to negotiate your wages. Okay. Now, whether or not the business or the person hiring you accepted that your terms remains to be seen. But at the end of the day, you accepted the terms that were offered to you when you accepted that employment. Whether you're getting paid minimum wage or whether you're getting paid $47 billion a year. Okay. At the end of the day, you were the one to agree to do the work for that rate. Period. You had the decision to make. It was your choice to accept employment under those terms. If you didn't agree with the terms then you shouldn't have took the job.
Yeah. But
find a different job that meets your terms.
But you know what it is? It's the reason why the government is doing this is the same reason why the government is paying off certain college student loans. Not all of them, certain college student loans. Why? They're buying votes. See, we're here to protect, the government's here to protect you, but you have to re-elect these specific people. Otherwise, the government won't be there to give you free stuff to be able to protect you.
Oh,
that's a racket.
It came out this week that this latest round, a vast majority of those people are making well over $300,000 a year.
Yeah, and that's not new. The average person with student loans, according to the left-leaning sources, the average person who has over $20,000 in student loans is a white male who makes at least $50,000 a year. That's the average. That's the overwhelming, that's the average. The mean, the most common individual are white women who are in their mid-30s that make $45,000 a year. These aren't people who are in poverty. Most of the people who have the college debt that we see being wiped out aren't poor people. They're upper middle class or better. That's where you get the $250,000. Joe down the block who's working in McDonald's and might be a minority, yeah, he's got $5,000 in debt, $6,000 in debt. He maybe finished college, maybe got a bachelorate, a BA, a BS. That's their degree. They've got, what, $20,000, not even $15,000 in debt. They're not getting it wiped out. They're not the ones that they're targeting. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cory Bush, members of Congress will not. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Cory Bush both have college student loans in excess of $150,000. They make $200,000 a year plus, and they don't pay federal tax on that, and they refuse to pay off their loans. They have literally said they want the United States government, you, to pay their student loan for their six-figure job that doesn't have taxes taken out. Because student loans, they're evil. This is crazy. It goes back to the corruption we were talking about earlier, where they know they're going to get a benefit for the law that they helped write and that they're voting for. And I think that Cory Bush, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, all of them, if they have outstanding student loans, they shouldn't be allowed to vote on a law that decides whether or not there's a student loan. They should be exempt from the Biden administration from having their loans wiped out. They would be the very last half dozen people in the entire United States to get their loans wiped out if it was ever going to happen. Why? Because they're lawmakers, because they're influencers, because it's their benefit. No, everyone in the universe should be taken care of before them, but that's not how it's working. That's not how it's working, and that's part of the corruption. You notice that would be interesting. Why don't they admit, why don't they come out with a public statement? Someone who goes to the next AOC town hall, you go to the Cory Bush town hall, Anna Presley or Ilhan Omar, next time you go to one of their town halls, ask them, will they still support the Joe Biden and the college loan buyback, which is just buying votes? Will they still support it? But they have to have an amendment in there that says that they and every member of Congress, every elected official in America will be the last people to benefit. I bet you they would say, no, we don't need to write that amendment in. Someone should ask them that on the record. They won't let me in, but maybe someone else.
Yeah, it's really disturbing what we are seeing. And for those of you that don't understand this, we are literally repeating history because we failed to learn from it in the past.
In a lot of different
ways. We are
ways.
repeating history in so many ways because we failed to learn from it in the past.
Not even that far back in the past. This is an article coming from CNN. What the pro-Palestinian protesters, the pro-Hamas protesters, and every one of these colleges, what are they all protesting about? Occupy New York. They're after the Occupy. They're into the entire argument of Occupy Wall Street. All the same arguments, all the same pro-socialism arguments. They're all coming back. They're tagging them in on top of this. We saw this happen before. Go ahead.
I want all you pro-socialist people out there, and I want you to find true socialist countries. You can't use Denmark. You can't use Norway. You can't use the Netherlands. Okay? True socialist countries. And I want you to find me one of those countries where the people actually improved their social status.
There isn't one.
Whether it's economically or whatever.
There isn't one.
Exactly. Everyone has failed for a reason. Every time it's been implemented, the people have suffered and severely suffered.
It's always the same promise of how great it's going to be this time, and it always fails. The most recent big failure is Venezuela, which is why Bernie Sanders stops mentioning their names. Before 2015, 2016, he couldn't stop mentioning them and absolutely was insisting that if he were to get elected in 2016, that he would model America after Venezuela. Aren't you happy he didn't get elected, Bernie Bros, considering what he wanted us to become?
Now, here's the other thing. There has never been true capitalism anywhere in the world. This has never been done. We have always had mixed economies. We have never seen a truly capitalistic economy.
Fair.
Okay. If true, pure capitalism were to actually work, be allowed to work, you wouldn't see a lot of this wealth gap that everybody's claiming. Okay. The reason why we're seeing wealth gaps that we're seeing is because of government regulations that have allowed for that wealth gap. It's allowed for concentration. Okay.
The wealth gap's
in
not a
a
bad thing.
capitalist society, competition keeps those wealth gaps from happening because people are able to enter markets that are lucrative easier.
Well, I think people, when they think of the wealth gap, they're confusing things because they equate the janitor with the CEO or the owner, founder, creator of a business. They're not the same. Their responsibilities, their risk, their investment aren't the same. The risk reward ratio, nowhere near each other. And yes, if you're the janitor or custodial engineer, if you want to be very progressive and make people feel good about it, you're a janitor, you shouldn't get paid the same as the CEO who has to manage a business and make sure that 1,000 people get paid versus the guy that just has to clear out an office every week. Not the same responsibilities, not the same risk. not the same pay.
And here's the thing. If we had a true capitalist market, okay, capitalist economy, wages wouldn't need to be artificially stimulated or inflated. Okay, which happens under unions, which happens under minimum wage laws. Okay, they would actually correspond with what the market is currently paying labor. And when you had jobs that weren't paying market rates, people would migrate from those jobs into jobs that were more lucrative. Okay, which in turn benefits everybody. When you have markets that are slow, the capital follows where it can do the most good. Okay, it doesn't go to markets that need to be supported. It actually comes out of those markets because they are dying markets.
It's incredible to me that people often confuse too much of what's going on, and because they heard the slogan, they hear what they think would be the good idea, because they're afraid of dealing with the realities, the truth. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about in that it's a little bit different. It's not with economics. Point to it in a different way. Because it's popular. It's in everyone's mind, all these protests at all these colleges. But they're examples of so many problems that are facing America right now, so many aspects of it. And one of those is, okay, so we have, because colleges and police departments, elected officials are afraid to hold people accountable, that people have made a decision and it's a bad decision, and they're afraid to let people get punished by that. You got a job, you're getting paid crap because you're a janitor and you wanted to be an engineer. Your fault. Don't accept the job as a janitor. Go and get the job as an engineer. Start a business so you can be an engineer. But in the same way that we're seeing this happen, that same mentalities here. Charges were dropped against all 57 students who believe in terrorism, who believe in genocide. They're protesting for genocide. They are protesting to support the terrorists that killed 34 Americans and 22 Americans being tortured and held hostage. 57 of them were arrested. They have all been released. The charges have been dropped. Think about that. The charges were dropped. It's not that they knew they were going. These students, the same thing we're seeing in Colombia, 108 of them, Ilhan Omar's daughter, they're getting arrested. They were told, they were warned repeatedly that you're trespassing, that this is a violation of the contract you made with that college, that this violates the safety regulations in that contract with the college, the rules of the college. And you know this. You've been warned 3 times, in many cases, even more, ahead of time, that if you do this in the manner that you are doing it, setting up tents, obstructing people's ability to go to and from class, threatening and endangering people, making them feel unsafe because of their religion or their ideology, that if you do this, you will be arrested and you may be expelled. They know this. These are the consequences. They made the choice. They did it anyway. 57 of them got arrested in Austin, knowing they violated the contract. They violated the law, and they did it anyway. And because the DA is an elected official and is afraid of not being reelected, of not getting donations from the alumni out of the University of Austin, because the union workers might be told not to vote for them, they let every single one of these kids who willfully broke the law, even after being warned of the consequences, they let every single one of them go. oh my God, look at the problem that we're having. Same thing with what's happening in Colombia with Ilhan Omar's kid. Ilhan Omar's kid gets arrested because she willfully broke the law. She willfully broke the contract with Columbia University. She willfully threatened and intimidated her fellow students. And she did this on purpose after being warned of the consequences that would happen. She gets arrested, rightly so. She was told she may not be able to come back to the campus because she threatened her fellow students, endangered them according to the terms of the contract. And she's now getting benefits of going onto TV saying, I don't know where I'm going to stay. Your mom is a member of Congress who makes over $200,000 a year, owns private businesses. You don't know where you're going to stay. You're not some homeless kid who can't get a burger at McDonald's. You're not suffering. She has more than enough access to everything. Well, but she's the victim here. No, she's not. She's the criminal here. She's the one who willfully broke the law. We don't want to hold her accountable for that. There was another stupid
Why
one.
would we do that?
Oh, but and you know who they are holding accountable? You know who they will keep out of the colleges, who they won't allow to get in and to do their jobs? They're going to do it to this guy.
In Israel.
This guy. I'm not playing the sound here, but not him. Right there. That guy with the glasses. That man is a professor at Columbia University. He's a professor. He works there. That's his job. They don't want to let him in to do his job, what they hired him to do. They refused. They turned off his access to the college, would not allow him to walk around the ground.
To enter the liberated zone.
And why did they deny him all of that? Because they don't like that he isn't breaking the law like the other students are. Because this man actually isn't supporting their violation of law and the contract, and he doesn't want to support a group of terrorists that killed Americans, and he is being punished. But the others, don't you feel sympathy for Ilhan Omar's kid? No, I don't. And this is exactly what you're talking about, Mike. So it's happening not just on a financial aspect, but it's happening in our life.
Yeah, well, not only that, okay, this week, or actually it's been ongoing here a little bit. The ATF announced its Operation Safe Cities.
That's still going on?
Yeah. And for you that don't know what this is, it's basically the ATF going into these states and trying to centralize any prosecution for quote unquote gun crimes. Okay. And the way they're justifying this is the Hobbs Act.
Huh?
Okay. Which was a law, 1946 law that was supposed to be fighting against robbery, extortion, and crimes that actually impacted interstate commerce. But they, again, are twisting a law that was passed, redefining stuff in order to justify their unlawful use of an act that wasn't, in order to use it for a means other than its intended use. Sorry about that. I'm getting tongue-tied because, like I said, this stuff is really starting to upset me. Actually, it's more than starting to. It's been upsetting me for a while.
No, I get that.
They're becoming very blatant about it.
And why wouldn't they? They're not being held accountable. Not the students, not the teachers, not the administrators.
And, well, this right here is the very reason why our state governors our state legislatures are falling down on the job. Okay. The federal government, the state governments, or the states, not state governments, the states are sovereign over the federal government.
Mhm.
They have absolute authority over the federal government. Okay.
Yeah.
And until we start realizing that, until governor and state legislatures start holding our federal government accountable, it's not going to stop. They're going to take more and more power away from the states, just like they are doing here. And if we, the people, don't hold our sovereignty over the states, we're going to see it happen even more at the state and local levels. Okay. And we are going to become nothing but serfs to, it will be a serfdom. Okay. That's basically it. We will be serfs to our government.
Yes.
And that is what they are turning us into.
For those who are wondering, on a serf, SERF, by the way, not with a U, SERF refers to a Middle Ages economic slave. It's a wage slave, essentially, like really a wage, not the modern, oh, you're not getting paid enough. No. A true wage slave would be a serf from the Middle Ages, from roughly the 1500s.
And by the 17th and 1800s, it would have been known as an indentured servant.
Yes.
Hey, you want to see something cool I picked up?
Yes.
You see this little device you got right here?
What you got?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is a payload deploy device meant to strap to the bottom of my drone. So this device strapped to my drone has a lift capacity of 15 pounds.
Okay.
You can take this, hook it to the bottom of your drone, and there's a little hook in that thing, and it goes to a cable, and you can lift up a payload of 15 pounds and fly it up to 3 miles away from where my location is. So, I was watching these protests. I was thinking to myself, man, a balloon full of like skunk piss would be hysterical to suspend from this, fly over one of these protests, and then with nothing more than the click of a button, you click the button and it drops the payload down. So, if anybody, I'm not saying you could,
No.
I'm not saying you should.
We do not advocate for that in any way, shape, or form. This is a theoretical exercise.
Theoretically, if we're going to come down to chemical warfare, which is being waged against the people that are just trying to go to class, if somebody who's of devious minds, might want to think about that. But I'll show you something else cool that I got. Okay, you guys know how I like my knives, right? I got my knife collection. Check this bad boy out.
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah, hand hammered stainless steel with Celtic runes engraved and laser engraved or chemically etched. I'm not sure. It actually looks like it's chemically etched into it. Really, really cool. 3 twists.
Solid piece.
Damascus steel. The only problem is it doesn't have a real guard to it, and it's not very ergonomic. So I'm going to be taking some leather and paracord and fashioning a proper grip for this so that I can wear it in my nifty little sheath over there. But this
going back to your drone deal. Here's what police in Hong Kong do.
Yeah. Well, they're also doing that on their boats to the Philippines, but that's a different argument. But yeah,
Okay,
blue
dye at protesters from water cannons, so they can go and arrest them later.
Yep, more easily identifiable later. It's just like the dye packs when they give them to the bank robbers.
Yeah.
So speaking of other things that you've gotten, Frank, how goes it with your guns that you have purchased?
brother, I'm having nothing but friggin' heartache lately. I can't win for losing. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to keep my YouTube channel fresh. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to come up with a couple of guns that not everybody has seen. And I wind up going to an auction about a month and a half ago, and I bought a bunch of guns from an auction house in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell me, oh, it's going to take about 10 days for us to process the sale because we're not an FFL. The auction house is not an FFL. They have all the guns in storage at an FFL. They just process the bidding, and then they pass it along to the FFL, and the FFL does the paperwork. Well, I'm waiting for my shipping order to come in, and finally get my shipping order about a week and a half ago. And it says, okay, the package is going to be delivered at such and such day, such and such time. And I'm looking at the slip in the email, and it's my home address. And I said, well, they're not going to ship them to my house. You can't ship those kind of guns to my house. You have to ship those to my FFL. So I do a little more research and found out they ship them through the Postal Service, which you're not supposed to ship modern firearms through that. You got to go through you can use the Postal Service for certain guns, but not modern stuff. Anyway, it says package delivered, ready for pickup. I said, well, how the hell is it ready for pickup? They can't determine if the package is ready for pickup. Only my FFL can. All my friggin' guns got delivered to a post office in Ohio. All my guns got delivered to a friggin' post office in Ohio. Because I'm sitting here waiting 3 weeks for these friggin' guns to show up. They're at a post office in Ohio. I call up the post office in Ohio. Oh, they have a package there with my name. Well, I'm in North Carolina. Can you ship them to my FFL? No, we can't do that. The FFL who shipped them here has to ship them. Well, can you get them back to my FFL? No, you have to come and claim the rifles and the handguns. Because I'm in North Carolina, I can't come up there to claim them. So I get on the phone. I'm dealing with Postal Service police. I'm dealing with the FFL in Wisconsin. I'm dealing with a different FFL in Ohio. The guy who they were shipped to in Ohio is another FFL. He went to pick them up so he could ship them back to me. They won't release them to him. They have to have a certified note come from the Wisconsin dealer to the Ohio post office, ship the box. They can't just do a return to sender and send them the hell back. No, they got to go through all this rigmarole. Now, I'm getting annoyed as hell because I have no idea who's in possession of my guns. I have no idea. All right. I don't know if somebody's taking them out of the package. They're playing with them. They're shooting people with them. I don't know what the hell's going on. Can't get any answers. So I do the one thing that as a responsible gun purchaser I should do. I call up the ATF.
Oh, God.
Excuse me, Mr. ATF man, but could you... I'm not going to give you the specifics of the situation. And I don't call from my own home phone number or my cell phone. I call from a burner number because I ain't stupid. And I say, hey, if this is my situation, what do? I leave a long, detailed message, but not a lot of specifics. Monday. Today's Friday. I told the ATF that there are guns on the loose in a post office on Monday. Today's Friday. I haven't heard a friggin' word back.
And
Nothing.
That's the problem with our gun control. It's not.
Right.
It's not the laws. It's not the laws. It's the enforcement.
Right.
It's the organizations too busy worried about making up their own rules than enforcing the rules that already exist.
Trying to concentrate on the ones that are existing.
Yeah.
Now,
what good's a law if you can't put people you want in jail?
Well, you see, that's the thing. There's nothing in this thing is a jailable offense that I can say yet because nothing has been stolen. Nothing was misappropriated. What probably happened is somebody in the post office printed out identical shipping labels and put them on 2 different boxes.
By the way.
Because I would have said, well, if they printed up 2 shipping labels and put them on the opposite boxes, then the guns that were supposed to go to Ohio would have shown up at my FFL
Right.
or at my house. I call up my FFL. I call my girl Sarah there. No, we don't have nothing for you yet here, Frank, but we've spoken to a bunch of different people. We've sent out documents, but nothing's come for you yet. And so nothing came from them. So somebody had to print 2 labels at the post office to send them out. Now I speak to the guy today from the FFL in Ohio, where the whole thing originally got screwed up. He is waiting for the guns to come back to his office on Monday, where then he will has to relog them into his catalog, hold them for 24 hours by law, and then repackage them and then send them out to me. But they can't be overnighted.
No.
Because here's the thing. They are using the postal service to ship the guns. They're not using UPS. They're not. Now, it's weird because usually the postal service will only take modern firearms if they're for military or law enforcement purposes, not for private collections like mine. So they're shipping them through the post office. I guess has something he said something about the chain of custody because they originally had the boxes. They have to verify now. Police were there involved with it, so they have to know what's going on. But now according to the post office is the only entity in the country that you are allowed to ship anything express that is not. How do I explain this?
Everyone else is restricted.
If I'm sending you a contract, Mike.
Yeah.
And it says, hey, Vass, I need you to sign this by the end of the week. And it's Monday. And I express it to you. All right. And I said, anytime next month, send it back to me. I broke the law. I can't send that letter to you express. I have to send that letter to you regular mail. Okay. But I can send it to you regular mail. I can send it FedEx. I can send it UPS. But if it's a time-sensitive document or a time-sensitive material that has to be someplace within a 24-hour period or has a date stamped on it, by law, you have to use the U.S. Postal Service. If I have to send you a document that has to be signed within 24 hours, I'm not allowed to use UPS to overnight it. I can overnight something that's not time-sensitive, but if it is time-sensitive, I have to, by law, use the post office. But you can't overnight firearms through the post office, whether for law enforcement or military or personal.
That's a series of stupid laws.
This is a series of how do we protect our jobs? How do we have to, how do we do this? How do we justify our own existence? By putting more restrictions on the free market so that if we eliminate people's choices, they are forced to do what we want them to do. But in any event, I'm sitting here now. It'll be 2 months since I bought my friggin' guns that I have already filmed all of the introductions for the guns. I've done all the stuff I've had to do for them. I've had everything. And I've got 2 more guns here sitting behind me that I still haven't gotten a review on because the reviews for these guns have to do with the guns I'm waiting for. And then I got another gun that's out there somewhere that Jan's got to help me work on because I don't know when the hell I'm ever going to get back to New York. So I'm just, I swear I'm not doing this anymore. If I can't fucking touch the goddamn gun and hold it in my hand, and I would show you what I mean now, but we would get thrown off the air. If I can't hold it in my hand the minute I'm buying it, I'm not buying it again. Because my life is just nothing but a friggin' headache right now. Nothing but a friggin' headache. So thanks for bringing that up, Mike.
Okay.
I need to give you something else to rant about.
Well, I was trying to explain it to Lori earlier today, and I could see her hands slowly moving up to her hair, where she was going to get ready to start pulling it out. She goes, I don't want to hear about your good experiences with guns. Why would you make me listen to the bad ones?
That's just a silly one. It makes no sense. Middle management all the way. That's it. It's middle management pushing papers around. That's it. Got nothing to do with making anyone safe. It's not about, which would be the ultimate thing. It's like, oh, but we're making sure everyone's safe. No, you're not. No, this says nothing about that.
That's it. It's not about making you safe. It's about controlling you, and it's about seizing more power. That's what it is, and it's about enriching themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all that's
and we
happening.
have shown time and time throughout this episode how that is exactly what's going on.
Yeah. It's crazy. And
okay. I mean, the EPA came out with their new rules basically saying that coal-fired power plants have to reduce their pollution
emissions
by 90% by 2037.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. And they know it.
Okay. Do you realize what that's going to do to coal-fired power plants? It's basically going to put them out of existence.
It has
That is
to.
what they are doing so that they can pad their wallets with their investments in renewable technology, renewable power that doesn't work and is not reliable.
That will not fulfill the energy needs of any state in America.
Here's how well renewable power is. Okay. This week, we had a fire up here. We have a wind farm up here. One of the windmills caught on fire.
That's not unusual. They do catch fire pretty regular. And right now, folks, Mike is searching for a document, probably something local news reporting on that. Is that right, Mike?
Yes. Just as soon as I find it here, because it, like I said, it literally happened this week. Where the let's see, should be right in here. No.
Yes, folks. My efforts.
Okay, I'm not able to find it relatively quickly, so I apologize that. But yeah, there was a windmill that literally burned itself out. Okay, because there is no real way to fight these once they catch on fire. These are 300 feet tall. Okay, you're not getting to it unless you're going to dump a water on it from an aircraft. You're not fighting that fire.
A ton of water off of several aircraft. I've seen and heard of the fires before, and it is more toxic to try and put out the fire than to let it burn. You introduce, because you would need the foam, the anti-fire foam, because it needs to seal off the oxygen, which just basically stops the fire from spreading realistically. And it's more toxic than just letting it burn. And of course, once one of the windmills, their turbines, once they are either damaged or their lifespan is used up, then they have to go into a toxic landfill because they're poisonous and can't be just recycled or put into a regular landfill.
Sure.
Something that most do not tell the public when they say, oh, we're setting up a wind farm. By the way, every 7 years on average, we're going to have to take off the turbines, buy brand new ones, and bury the old one in a new toxic waste dump.
Okay. And the average lifespan of these is roughly about 15, 20 years. Okay. And the cost and the return on investment don't meet. Okay. The only reason why these are able to even exist, if they had to rely on solely upon themselves and not government subsidies, they would not be in existence at all.
Oh,
because their return on investment never equals the initial cost of the installation.
By the way, I found it.
Okay. Yep.
So that's the one. And look, fiberglass particles drifted downwind. Isn't that great news? Don't people feel good about breathing in fiberglass particles?
And that black smoke is highly toxic.
Yeah, I can't imagine that being cancerous
And
at
I
all.
guarantee you, there are no firefighters climbing up that tower because the center of that's hollow. There's a ladder in there. There are no firefighters climbing up that tower to put out that blaze.
I wouldn't do it. That's crazy. All you're going to do is suck in fiberglass and possibly
even
have
with
big collapse.
SCBAs, they're not going to do it because there is no escape path for them.
Yeah. But notice this only made the local news, but it won't reach state. Not even the state level news will cover this. Why? Because it's wind power, and wind power is supposed to be good. Don't talk about any of the consequences of wind power. No, that would be bad. Like,
and here's the other thing. Multiple fire departments were on scene at that fire, which also means, and they're there for hours because they literally couldn't do anything other than keep it from spreading.
right.
Okay, and that was their whole purpose, was to keep it from spreading, and they had to have so many departments there to keep it from spreading because of the way the wind and so forth were. Okay, which put them out of commission to respond to other emergencies.
Which is yet another problem with this. Yet another problem. Your resources are being wasted. That's just crazy.
No, that's a different one. That's not the one that happened this week. That one's on April 17th, 2023.
Right.
That's last year.
Oh, this is 2023. Sorry, I missed that. It was 2023. It's so common.
Okay. This was this year. Is near Churubusco, New York. Okay. And like I said, multiple departments from the surrounding area had to respond to it in order to keep the fire from spreading. And right now in upstate New York, we are under a mandatory burn ban until May 15th.
Because, a burn ban?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means nobody's allowed to open burn.
No burn barrels, no fire pits, no open barbecues, no hibachis.
Right.
Can't burn leaves, that kind of stuff. We always had them up in Shenango and Broome come to, the end of May. That's when they would lift the burn bans.
State law basically shuts down any burning. I think it's from middle of March until May 15th.
There are a lot of
March 16th.
If people were to search this, they would find that there are a lot of these fires. It's very common.
Is. They are very common.
Hey guys, listen.
Of course, they will tell you, well, out of so many hundred, there's only this many fires.
Well, you guys can talk about fires. I'm going to talk about sleep. I'm going to go get out of here. I am exhausted. My problem was today. I neglected to take my diabetes medication until just before dinner today. So my blood sugar's been out of whack all day, which is making me very lethargic. Then I took my medication right at the onset of dinner, and it still hasn't hit in yet. So I'm starting to get a little cloudy. So I'm gonna get out of here while I still have enough energy to get down the stairs.
Fair point.
All right, we'll catch you guys next week. And ladies and gentlemen in the audience, thank you again for joining us. I'll leave you in the capable hands of my compadres. And until we meet again, you guys will be safe and shoot straight.
All right, Frank.
You have a good night, Frank. Enjoy your weekend.
You too.
We're over again.
Okay.
Just realized we're over again.
Yeah, we do that quite often.
I know.
But I found it. Okay, so give me just a second. And
We
Here it
are
is.
training him. We are training him to talk while he searches. It's
Okay.
getting better, folks.
so this 3 days ago, good morning. At 4:41 a.m. today, fire department and ambulance responded to a reported windmill fire located on Route 876 and 189 Chateauguay. Respond mutual aid. Trucks are still on scene.
Odd that 3 days ago, and yet it's not Google searchable.
Mhm.
Odd, isn't that, folks? That we know it exists. The fire department told us so. Google won't.
Okay, there it is in all its glory.
How many local fire departments are having near wind farms are having moments like this that the local population know about it? If you know where to look, you can find it, and Google will not tell you, even if you do something like wind turbine fire New York 2024, and it won't tell you this from 3 days ago.
And as you can see, the fire department is standing there literally watching it burn because there is nothing they can do.
Yeah, but I just feel bad for them because, again, that black fire, just like in the video, the article that we showed from 2023, that's fiberglass particles. Those fire departments, they're potentially breathing in fiberglass particles. That's the whole problem with asbestos. Fiberglass particles. They can give you cancer. No one wants to talk about that.
No.
And the government is forcing us to have more of these problems, not less, because they don't want to tell you, oh, here is a direct consequence, which is their obligation. This is their job. If they want this, they should be telling us, oh, by the way, when this burns, here's the problem.
Yeah. Okay. And they're going to force coal power plants to reduce their emissions 90%.
So it sounds like Facebook delayed the start of the show, by the way. So for people who may be watching, we didn't know until just now that it seems Facebook was playing games with the start of the show. We started actually on time.
We did. We did. So that being said, we are over. We're about 2 hours, 24 minutes right now. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this show up. We are here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Okay. I'm going to give my normal spiel. If you aren't already a member of the Liberty First Foundation, please sign up. We need to add your voice with ours so we can start turning this country around and start restoring it back to its constitutional foundation. Otherwise, we're going to continue going down the road we are going down. And it's not good, folks. It really isn't. Okay. And if you don't agree with us and our policies, find another pro-constitutional organization to join. The Cato Institute, the 10th Amendment Center. There are numerous ones around. Okay. But get involved, learn, educate yourself, start teaching yourselves about what government is allowed and isn't allowed. And I don't care if you're liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, I don't care. Teach yourself the Constitution, because when your party's not in power, the other party is violating it. Guaranteed.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
And
We
we
will
see
see you next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday night. Catch us again. Thank you, everybody.